So let's talk about learning and conditioning. So we'll talk about conditioning first. Conditioning is ways in which we learn based upon association between two events by related exposure. So there are two types of conditioning, classical and operant. So classical. This is a method of conditioning in which associations are made between natural stimulus and learned neutral stimulus. So I'm just going to use the example I learned in class, which is like a dog. So when a dog is fed by someone, it's obviously the person brings the dog food, and the dog's glands are starting to water because it sees the food. That's the natural stimuli. And then, as time, every day this happens, as time goes on, when the dog sees the person who's feeding them, even if they have food or don't have food, because they've learned that this person brings them food, usually, they've learned that so their glands have learned to water, start to become salivarized every time they see this person, and that's the learned stimuli or the neutral stimuli. So that's how classic learning is. Like, if I failed a test because using one pencil, and then I brought a new pencil, and that's the natural stimuli, then I brought a new pencil and I passed the test, I'm going to start to use this new pencil because I learned that using this pencil made me pass the test, or at least that's what my brain thinks. So then we have operant conditioning. This is conditioning that results from actions and consequences from those actions. So, pretty much like, it's like actions and consequences. So, when something happens, like, let me think of a good example. When something happens, like, starting a conversation with a guy, he becomes more flirty. So, from the action of starting the conversation, I learned that he's more flirty when I make the first move. I know I use guys a lot in my examples, but that's because they're just so related to my life. So that's the thing. And there's also, so that's operant. This is like John Watson, which I talked about earlier. Operant conditioning. He pretty much taught this child, this baby Albert, to be scared of fluffy white things because of a noise. So, because he saw this fluffy white rabbit and the noise in the background was so loud that he got scared, he learned from the action of seeing the rabbit that this noise was going to come. So every time he saw this rabbit, he automatically assumed that he was going to hear the loud noise, even into his adulthood, even to his adult life. And things like that can be called generalization. So that's conditioning. One thing used in operant conditioning is reinforcements, positive and negative. So positive reinforcements strengthen the possibility to repeat a response by following it with something that is pleasant. Negative is strengthening the response by following it with something that is unpleasant. So, like, let's talk about positive reinforcements. If I cleaned my room and got all my homework done by Saturday, my mom gives me the positive reinforcement that I can stay out past my curfew. I can stay out past 12. So, knowing that I got all my chores done and I got everything I needed to get done, I have the positive reinforcement that I can stay out later, so I'm probably going to do it again next weekend. I'll probably get all my stuff done early so that way I can stay out later. Whereas the negative reinforcement will be like when I talk back to my mom because she's making me angry, I get the negative reinforcement that I'll be grounded. So the next time that she makes me angry, I'll just walk away instead of talking back because I don't want to get grounded again. So, and negative reinforcement and punishment are two different things, because punishment is, you know, not only is it unpleasant, but it's adding something that you wish you didn't. It's adding something even more unpleasant. Like, if I talk back to my mom, I get grounded, and I have to clean the cat box, the kitty litter. I know I'm getting punished as well because I have to clean the kitty litter. So communication styles. There are 3 types of communication styles I will talk about. The first is aggressive. So this kind of communicator is a poor listener. He or she doesn't really care what the other person has to say. It's all about them. It's very me, no one else. They want people to do as they do. They don't really care, and they have a lack of empathy for others. So that's what a poor listener is. If you're a poor listener, you should work on it, because no one likes a poor listener, especially girls. The next kind of communicator we'll talk about is passive. And these kind of people don't express their true feelings. They're very eager to please others, so they'll immediately say sorry, even if they're not in the wrong, even if they didn't do anything wrong, because they just want to make things better. So if we have an aggressive communicator, can't see my hand, and a passive communicator talking, obviously the aggressive communicator is talk, and even though the passive communicator is getting annoyed because they want to say something, they won't, because they're passive and they just let it happen, and they just want the aggressive communicator to be happy. And then we have the third type, which is the kind of communicator you want to be, which is the assertive. This kind of communicator listens to others as well as feels others listen to them. They can have a conversation where it's, you know, talk, back and forth, instead of just talk, silence, you know. They're very good listeners as well as very good talkers. They're both. They know how to talk and they know how to listen. A big thing about communication is using I statements instead of you statements, and that's a big thing we learned about. I statements are saying, I feel this way because I feel a certain way because I feel blah blah blah. So I feel stressed out because I'm trying to go to school and work and have a social life all at once, instead of you statements where it's like, you should not give me so much homework because you don't understand how busy my life is. Because when you use you statements, you're being accusing instead of using I statements where you're explaining how you feel. So that's a big thing with communication. And using I statements will definitely help someone become an assertive communicator. The next thing we'll talk about is learning styles. Yay! Big things about, so there's 2 different type of learning styles. We have the right brain and the left brain. That's probably backwards for you, so left and right. Okay, so left brain learners, they are very logical. They're much better in math and English because they do better with that kind of stuff. They're not very creative. They don't like to do arts and crafts. I'm holding up right brain, excuse me. Left brain. Left brain learners are very logical learners. I'm a left brain learner. I do much better with math and English and logical stuff, like things like that. Whereas the right brain learner is more creative. They like art better than they do math because math just suits their learning better. I had a nurse in the hospital, and her daughter had to be moved from school to school to school because no matter what school she was in, she just didn't do well with regular classes. She was not a left brain learner. She was more of a right brain learner. So finally, she applied for the Denver School of Arts, and is now on track to graduate because at the Denver School of Arts, she's being able to be creative, and that's what kind of brain she is. So knowing what kind of learner you are is very helpful, because if you're a logical learner, if you're a left brain learner, you know you can do better in those classes. Whereas if you're a right brain learner, you know you're not going to do so well in regular classes like math and history. So going to alternatives like the Denver School of Arts can be very helpful to you. So that's very important. I'm going to just talk about memory real fast. Hopefully I can do this in 4 minutes. So we'll talk about memory. There are 2 types of memory. We have recall. So this is where a measure of memory where the person must remember the information. I wrote info though. The information. So this is like on a test when a teacher asks, who was the first president of America? You have to remember that information. So your memory must remember, okay, I remember that it's George Washington. That's what recall memory is. Recognition memory is a measure of memory where a person recognizes the information. So this is like on a test where it's a multiple choice question. Who was the first president of the United States? And you have your A, B, C, and D. A, Justin Bieber. B, George Washington. C, Chewbacca. D, John Cena, the WWE fighter. Obviously, when you're looking at these 4 options, you can recognize that George Washington is the only president on that list, so your recognition memory chooses George Washington, and you get the answer right. I'm going to go over some memory disorders. So here we go. We have amnesia, Alzheimer's, amnesia, brain injury, dementia, hyperthymetic syndrome, Huntington's disease, Parkinson's disease, and Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. Some of these I have actually never even heard of, but some of them I have. Obviously Alzheimer's is more seen in older people. They slowly lose their memory. They forget who they are and who their children are. Amnesia can happen from, brain injuries, and this is where they remember things from a long time ago, but not from things that had just recently happened. And regaining their memory, they remember things from the past to the present. And sometimes they never even remember. If you've seen The Vow, you know what I'm talking about. Everyone's seen The Vow because The Vow's amazing. But also, like Huntington's disease, I've heard of that. I don't know the symptoms necessarily. And Parkinson's disease. There's a very famous actor with Parkinson's disease. So, trivia question. You can know who that is. But yes, and he kept it a secret for a very long time too.